In 1976, ABBA recorded a song about a woman dreaming of becoming rich. By then, they were already one of the world's most successful pop groups. But just a few years earlier, their lives had looked very different. The four of them traveled across provincial Sweden in a tiny car, performing a stage show called Festfolk in small restaurants and clubs, often for audiences who seemed more interested in eating and drinking than listening. At one performance, a drunken man waved a sausage on the end of his fork and shouted, "Great! Give us another one!" Years later, Bjorn admitted, "That was probably the most embarrassing period of our career. Thank God none of those performances were ever recorded."
I work all night, I work all day, to pay the bills I have to pay. The song begins, and with those very first lines, ABBA steps into a world familiar to millions of people. A world of endless work, unpaid bills, financial worries, and the feeling that no matter how hard you work, there never seems to be enough money.
Then the woman reveals that she has a plan. If only she could find a wealthy man, her life would be completely different. She wouldn't have to work from morning till night anymore. She could simply enjoy life. At first, her dream sounds almost naive. But before long, it becomes clear that deep down, she doesn't really believe this plan will work either.
A man like that is hard to find. And if he happens to be free, I bet he wouldn't fancy me.
From this point on, the song becomes even more interesting. It is no longer just a story about an easier life. It becomes the story of someone who knows that miracles rarely happen, yet refuses to stop dreaming. And that's when a second plan begins to take shape.
If finding a wealthy man is almost impossible, then there's only one option left: Las Vegas, or Monaco, or any other chance that might change her life in an instant.
Of course, the chances of winning a fortune in a casino are no better. But when every other door seems to be closed, it's only human to believe that one lucky break could change everything.
The song resonated with millions because it tells the story of an exhausted woman who begins to dream about one extraordinary stroke of luck. A dream she is still willing to chase, even if the odds are against her. In this story, the casino isn't the point. It's simply a symbol. During the recording of Money, 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 arguments kept breaking out. Tempers flared, and emotions often ran high. They were recording a song about dreaming of wealth, yet they themselves knew exactly what success had cost them. Perhaps that was one of the reasons why the recording sessions were even more tense than usual.
When ABBA came together, Agneta and Frida found themselves in the position of the song's heroine, after she had already hit the jackpot. They were now surrounded by people who could help reveal their talent to the entire world. Björn and Benny were writing stronger and stronger songs, while ABBA's manager, Stig Andersson, was making plans that many considered far too ambitious. He wasn't dreaming of just another successful Swedish pop group. He was dreaming of building a musical empire.
In a way, this is where the most interesting parallel with Money, Money, Money begins. The woman in the song dreams of meeting someone who can change her life and lead her to wealth. Agneta and Frida had already met those people. They believed in Bjorn and Benny's talent. They believed in Stig's vision. And together, they set out on a risky journey that would eventually lead them to worldwide success.
The song could easily have had a completely different title. At first, Björn tried building the story around a mysterious gypsy girl. That was even the song's working title. But as the lyrics developed, it became clear that this approach only made the song more complicated. In the end, Bjorn and Benny returned to the simple, direct title: Money, Money, Money.
This reflected one of ABBA's greatest strengths. No matter how ambitious their musical ideas were, they always tried to make their songs as clear, direct, and relatable as possible. Instead of hiding behind complicated symbolism, they focused on one simple idea that millions of people could instantly understand.
Years later, Benny called Money, Money, Money his favorite song from the Arrival album. In his view, it was constructed almost like a stage performance, and it's easy to understand why. Listening to the song, you get the feeling that it isn't just another pop hit. It's a miniature musical drama unfolding in just 3 minutes.
As ABBA evolved, the two singers gradually developed distinct vocal identities. Agneta became the natural voice for songs filled with vulnerability, longing, and emotional fragility. Songs like SOS suited her perfectly. Frida, on the other hand, increasingly became the voice of stronger, more determined, and sometimes even tougher female characters. It's no coincidence that Money, Money, Money is sung by her.
By this point, ABBA had reached an entirely new level. In a remarkably short period of time, they had released songs like SOS, Fernando, Dancing Queen, and Knowing Me, Knowing You. They were no longer simply producing hit records. They were building a reputation as a group capable of delivering world-class songs again and again. If the woman in Money, Money, Money was still dreaming of wealth, for ABBA, that dream had already become reality. Record sales kept rising. Concert audiences grew larger with every tour, and the group was reaching heights they could only have dreamed of just a few years earlier, when they were performing for indifferent restaurant audiences during their Festfolk days.
The success of Money, Money, Money exceeded even the band's highest expectations. Released in November 1976, it quickly became one of the standout hits from the Arrival album. In Australia, the single stayed at #1 for 6 consecutive weeks. It also topped the charts in Belgium, France, the Netherlands, West Germany, Mexico, and New Zealand. In the United Kingdom, Ireland, Norway, Switzerland, and Austria, it reached the top 3. By now, it was clear that ABBA's success was no longer limited to one country, or even one continent. Money, Money, Money had become another truly international hit.
Ironically, the story of a woman dreaming of wealth was making its own creators wealthier with every passing week. After winning Eurovision, many critics dismissed ABBA as a one-hit wonder. Then came SOS, and people called it a worthy follow-up. After Fernando and Dancing Queen, opinions began to change. But by the end of 1976, there was very little doubt left. ABBA weren't just producing hit songs. They had become one of the defining pop groups of their era.
The music video proved to be just as important. Years later, director Lasse Hallström said that Money, Money, Money was the finest video he had ever made for ABBA. The theatrical nature of the song, Frida's dramatic performance, and the video's unique visual style came together perfectly. The result was far more than another successful single. It turned Money, Money, Money into one of the most recognizable and enduring songs in ABBA's entire catalog.
Shortly after the release of both the Arrival album and the Money, Money, Money single, ABBA traveled to London for a promotional visit. The original plan was to fly the group to a press conference by helicopter, the very same one featured on the cover of Arrival. But thick London fog forced the organizers to abandon the idea, and the band arrived in an ordinary limousine instead. In the end, though, the helicopter didn't really matter. What mattered was how differently Britain now saw ABBA. Only a short time earlier, many people in the UK had dismissed them. Now they were being welcomed as international superstars. Arrival was topping the charts. Money, Money, Money was conquering country after country, and journalists were eager to get an interview with the band.
Not everyone was pleased by ABBA's success. Many British music critics, and much of the politically minded youth of the time, saw the group as too polished, too commercial, and far removed from the protest culture that was then sweeping through popular music. During one public appearance, someone shouted through the crowd, "Plastic bourgeois puppets, go home!" Whether the members of ABBA actually heard the remark remains unknown. Perhaps they simply chose to ignore it. Either way, they had more important things to think about. New songs, new countries, and the biggest tour of their career were waiting just ahead.
For ABBA, money was never the ultimate goal. Björn and Benny were far too passionate about writing new songs to spend much time celebrating their success. No sooner had they finished one project than they were already thinking about the next. Meanwhile, Stig Anderson was constantly searching for new markets, new opportunities, and new ways to make ABBA even bigger.
The woman in their song dreamed of finding her fortune in Monaco or Las Vegas. ABBA found theirs in a very different way. Their story was about people who turned a dream into a profession. For them, money was never the destination. It was proof that their music had found its audience. Subscribe for more stories about ABBA.